All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to our class. We are going to be doing the welcome sign with the sunflower and pumpkin. This is a great fall piece for the fall or even late summer. So I just want to start off by saying thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. Since this is a pre-recorded class, you can rewind it as many times as you need, pause it whenever you need to, or restart if you absolutely have to. For this piece, I am going to be doing it on a wood background. If you are not doing it on a wood background and you absolutely need to have color in the background on a canvas, there is a free background video on our YouTube channel that teaches you how to blend. So it will teach you how to do a background. It is only maybe 10 or so minutes long. So that's a good video to watch beforehand. If you do not have something that you need a background for, if it's on wood, if it's on something else, this is a good place to start. So if you do have a canvas background, you can do the same thing that we're doing here, but it might be a little bit different. So if you start off with something like this or something like that, the next thing that you want to do is you want to trace out your drawing. So a lot of times I will go back to my website and I will find the painting that I did before, and I will either have it on a computer or I'll print it out. It's just much easier if you have see what I'm doing and to also see the final result on the computer, just so you know where we're at during the video. So the first thing I want to go over is that a lot of people always think that they can't do this. You absolutely can paint. Anybody can paint, even if you can't draw a stick figure. It is very simple if you take out your nerves. A lot of people look at it and go, oh my God, I can't do that. And they get so stiff and frustrated, and then they're not able to do it. If you sit back and you go through each step and you just take a breath, it's not as complicated as you think. So this is fun. Relax, have fun while doing it. And the more fun you have, the better your painting will be. If you do have trouble with it, it's totally fine. Once you try anything new, you're always going to have hiccups along the way and learning curves and all that other stuff. So the nice thing about painting is you can always paint right over it. So don't worry. If you have canvas, paint right over it. Even wood, paint right over it. Don't worry about it. Even if you completely mess this up and you on the wood, you could always go back, wait, and you can paint a background color on this and hide everything that you messed up. It's not garbage. Don't worry. Don't get frustrated. Sometimes if I do get frustrated, I'll take a break and I'll walk away for a minute. And then I'll come back and do it again. So that's one of the first rules. Have fun. Don't get frustrated. Second rule is, a lot of people do this. They paint with too much paint. You put so much paint on there that it's globby and then it takes forever to dry. If you do get to that point, just wait. Either wait until it's fully dry, bring it in front of a fan and let it help dry, or even a hairdryer, that helps. If the paint is tacky and you keep going and you go on top of it, you might start pulling the paint up from underneath. So it's always the best chance is just wait if it starts to get a little tacky. If it's still fresh and you want to blend with it, keep going, because that's the only way to blend. But if you need to go on to the next step with the layer on top of it, wait for it to fully dry. Now the other thing when it comes to painting, besides that, you always want to paint the thing in the back first. A lot of people, and I do this myself, you always want to paint the fine detail, the fun part, the things that make it alive. You have to think in reverse. You always want to paint the farthest thing back. So in this one, the first thing that we want to be painting is the sign, because it's the sign, then the sunflowers, and then the pumpkins. So always remember to do that. If you do that, then you're going to have the dimension. You're going to have that, okay, well, I can tell that the sign is behind it. I could tell that the sunflower is in front of the sign, and I could tell that the pumpkin is in front of that sunflower. That will give you that three-dimension look that you're looking for. So far, that is probably the only thing that we really need to keep in mind. And like I said, if I'm going too fast, if you're having trouble keeping up, just pause it. That's the nice thing about the recordings, is that you can take as long as you need. So the next step is we're going to be taking either your pencil, or I'm going to use my chalk, and we're going to draw out our picture on here. Now, again, if you can't draw anything, don't worry. I'm going to break it down where it's simple shapes. If you're able to draw a stick figure, you can draw boxes, you can draw circles, and the nice thing is pencil you can erase, chalk you can erase. So even if you mess up, don't worry. So I'm looking at mine, and I always try to draw the biggest shapes first, like not the detail, and that way I get my proportion right. So I know that I want to have my sign come up pretty high where it's close to the top, and I know it's crooked. So I'm going to say it's about that. I might want to turn it a little bit later, and that's the nice thing about chalk, because I can go over it and I can fix it. And I'm going to, so that was just a rectangle. Now I'm just going to draw the top of it, which is just a square. I'm just going to take my chalk, and even if I draw on it, because you won't see this later, I'm just going to have it, and I'm sorry, I'm a turner of my material. I'm just going to have it come down. Oops, went a little bit there. That's okay. Now I think I might straighten this out just a little bit. Okay. And I might just go all the way down just so I know where it's looking. And it looks like I made my thing a little thick, so I might come in and I might just fix that. Use my fingers, wipe it around, or use your pencil to erase it. It's totally fine. And now I am going to look where I want my sunflowers. I think I'm gonna I want my center of my sunflower, and I want the petals to be bigger. So I'm probably gonna do my first circle about here. I'm probably gonna do my second one about here. I just want to take a minute and just talk about what I'm actually painting on. This was actually a fence that fell down in my yard. I had to replace my fence. I took all the fencing, and I just took my chop saw and I cut all of them. And I took another piece of wood and I cut it, and I glued this together. I just used wood glue and put something heavy on top and waited over 24 hours. That's all I did. Very simple, and it gives a very nice reclaimed wood look. If you are looking for something like this, do not go to Michael's unless you absolutely have to. Do not go to Walmart unless you absolutely have to. Look at Marketplace. Look at OfferUp. Look at what's in your neighborhood. A lot of people go out there and say, my fence blew down, it's garbage, it's free, come and take it. I find a lot of slate, because a lot of contractors buy the wrong size and now they're stuck with it and they need to get rid of it, or someone redid their slate roof and they're like, I have all this slate here and I don't want anything to do with it and it's free, take it, or it's $1 a piece. I think I got all of my slates for almost $2 a piece. They're huge. You can get a lot of this stuff for free. So always check there first before going out and buying something. These make for great gifts. And if you have a couple tools, or if you want to slowly get a couple tools like a chop saw or something else, I think they're roughly $100, maybe $150 if you do this often. Or you can even get something else, a small little hand saw for like $50. They're well worth it. I started with one and now I feel like I have 1,000 of them. So before you go out and you buy expensive, rough looking wood from the stores that are already made, try looking in your neighborhood. It's always good to recycle and reuse and stuff like that. Okay, so now if you look at my drawing, all I did was a rectangle. And I did a very, very long rectangle. And I did 2 circles, and these are gonna be the center of my flowers. Now for the petals, a lot of times is I'll try to find where I want the end of it, and I'm just gonna do a curve. Here's another curve, and I'm just gonna do that all the way around. And like I said, if you mess up, it's fine. Go back and fix it. Don't worry about it. This is kind of a fun part because you're coming up with a design. If you don't like it, erase it, no problem. A lot of times what I do is because one of the hardest things to do is to try to keep it proportionate. So what I can do, and you can do this with each petal if you want to, I'll take my finger and I'll measure it. Now I have my measurement right here. It's a rough measurement. It doesn't have to be exactly the same, so don't worry about it. You don't have to take your tape measure and measure every single one. Don't worry about it. Take your 2 fingers. Okay, that's roughly about the same. That's about the same. That's about the same. And go through all of them so it looks kind of proportionate. All flowers, when you look at them, they're all slightly different. So unless it's like one gigantic one over here and one tiny one, don't worry about it. A little bit off actually makes it look more real. And you want to do the same thing on this side. Now this is where you're kind of seeing what goes on top of what. Oops. Okay, so I have my 2 sunflowers, and now I want to add the stem. Now with where my sunflowers are ending up, I might actually not need the sunflower stem, but I'm gonna add it anyway. And then I'm gonna draw my pumpkin. So pumpkins, it's just a couple lines, almost the same as your flower. So I know that I'm gonna wanna have it about this big. I don't wanna have it go all the way to the end of it, but I wanted to kind of use this entire corner. So I wanna go all the way to the left and find out where my end is. I'm gonna do the same on this side. Get my outer. I don't think I actually want to have it come in, so I think I might just do this. Okay. So now I have my shape right here. Okay. Now I want to go back and I want to add the second. It's almost like drawing a moon. And I'm going to do the same. I'm going to draw my next piece. And I might pull it in a little bit more because I don't know if I want more than 3. So I might get rid of this. Okay, now if you can, if you're having trouble seeing it, go back and try to get rid of the pieces that you don't need. And I don't know, depending on later, if I want to keep my sunflower on top of it or behind it. Then I'm just going to add the stem, which is another square. Okay, so now the next step is I'm going to have to paint this all white. Now, if you have a background with a darker color, you're probably going to want to do the same thing. Or even if it's like a blue background, the yellow is a lot harder to cover the background color. So you always want to put white. So when you put your other color on top of it, it stands out. So I am going to go over every part that is going to need paint. I'm going to put white in the background. Now you might sit there and say, oh my God, I just went through all this detail drawing everything. Yes, you did put a lot of detail, but it's also another way for you to get the proportions right. Because if you just did a broad outline of something, you might not know if that's actually going to look like a pumpkin. It might just end up being a circle. It's not oval enough. So I always try to add a couple of those extra things, and the same thing with the flower. I always like to add in that extra detail just so it's going to come out the way I want it to. So now I am going to add my white. Like I said, I'm going to go and cover everything I know needs paint with a base of white. So I always like to try to start with the top. Now my sign is going to say welcome, but you can say anything you want. And that's the nice thing about art, because you can make it yours. I'm going to make this sign a little bit shorter. I'm not going to go down as far. Okay, so now my sign is technically done. So now I'm going to go and I'm going to paint where my flower is. And I think I might just make my flower a little bit taller, just so I'm not covering the pumpkin as much. So I'm just going to raise it just a little bit. Raise it a little bit more. I'm going to add a little bit more white. Also, and I do this all the time, my husband always jokes around that it looks like I get beat up all the time. My hands, I always paint here. If I have red or purple or black, sometimes I will always drop my hand in it, and then all along here looks like it's all bruised from all the paint. He always thinks I hurt myself in the shop. So when you're painting, try not to keep your hand, or at least your palm, on top of your painting, because especially if it's wet and you don't remember or you're not thinking about it, you're going to start seeing some of that. just want to make this one just a tad bigger. Okay. Now we're going to do the same thing on this side. I think I'm going to lift it a little bit higher since I lifted this one. So I apologize for that. But that's the fun part of painting and drawing something, because sometimes you might start off an idea and then it just slightly changes and turns into something a lot better than you thought it was going to be. Also, when it comes to painting, a lot of people will pour a bunch of paint into their palette. You do not have to do that, especially with this paint. I always suggest to pour a lot less paint into your palette because this stuff dries pretty quickly. And it is always easier to put more paint onto your palette than it is to take the extra paint and pour them back in, because it gets kind of funky after a while. It's always, the more you paint, the more you'll see that it's so much nicer to paint with fresh paint. So once it starts getting like this weird, I don't know, it's like I don't know how to explain it. It's like a weird, it almost pulls, and it's so much harder to blend. And as soon as you pour a little bit more like fresh paint on there, it almost like it glides. So I always say paint with less paint, or paint with no paint. And then you'll start seeing that it's a lot more fun to paint with. So as I come close to finishing with the white paint, it's really starting to look like how I envisioned it at the very beginning, it's starting to take form. Okay. So I'm looking at my top. I'm not sure if I want to make that a little bit longer on the top. Might have to make that a little fatter at the bottom, but I'm not sure. So while this is wet, I'm going to turn the whole thing around and start working on the wood. So I'm going to turn this around. And now this is where your blending is really going to come in handy, because that's all we're going to be doing for the rest of the class. Okay. So now when it comes to the wood, so I'm going to get my brown, and I might match to this brown and the white. All right, so I want to have this as a little bit lighter, so I'm going to use a little bit of the brown and more of the white. So I'm going to just dab it. I'm going to go from side to side, just like that. And I'm going to leave the streaks. You see how there's like streaks of dark lines and light lines? You want to leave that, because that's what's going to make it look like real wood. So I'm just getting the corners. And I might add a little yellow in here just to give it that lighter color. Or I might switch to light brown. Well, I might add a little bit of my light brown. And you can make light brown by mixing a little bit of white and the dark brown and a little bit of yellow. Yeah, that's more of the color I was looking for, but it's good to have that base color. So I'm just going to go back and forth, adding brown. I might even grab some tan and make it even lighter. Yeah, I think I like the lighter color. See, I'm just gonna go right back and forth. And I cover it with that tan color. And then it really starts to looking like wood when you have a bunch of those colors in. I might add a couple streaks. I'm just going to lightly go over them so it blends in. I'm going to add white. And try to get those lines away from the side. I'm having a little trouble getting those straight lines on the side, and that might just mean it's because I'm using too big of a brush. That's when you're going to want to switch to a smaller brush. But so far, I'm happy with how this has come out. And then I'm going to start looking at how to make it 3D. So how to make it look 3D is by putting a side on it. And a lot of times I'll say, okay, well, where do we want to put the light? And a lot of times I always do in the upper left-hand corner, which, and that's because I'm painting this upside down, it's over here. So let's just say that I took a light and I put it here and I shine it down. Technically, this part is going to be dark and this part is going to be light because of the way the light hits. So that's how I'm going to choose where I'm going to put the bottom. So I'm going to take, actually I'm going to switch to a smaller paintbrush. I'm going to take that dark brown. I'm going to paint almost an outline right underneath. Just like that. And the thicker you go, the thicker it's going to make your sign. So we're going to put right underneath. And then I'm going to go to the left of it, or technically the right if you're looking at the other way. And I'm going to put another brown line. Now when you look at it, it looks 3D. So that's really what you're gonna want to do. Now also I'm gonna have my little paintbrush, I'm gonna take the dark brown, and I might even take a little bit of black to grab. And I'm just gonna paint in the sides of it. Just gonna add a little bit of brown, a little bit of black, and I'm just going to add almost like a triangle. I even need a tinier paintbrush. Almost like that. I'm going to add a little bit of black onto the sides. Just like that. And I'm going to do it on the other side. Take a little bit of black, a little bit of brown. Probably going to go on the bottom. I'm going to make this one a little bit bigger. Just like that. And it almost makes it look like there's like a crack in the wood. This one might have been a little bit too big. I'm gonna add a little bit of light to fix that. And I might just have to go back and fix that later. You see how it almost looks like a little bit of a crack is in it on both sides, and I always like to add a couple more, just very, very tiny ones. Right in the sides, maybe make this one a little bit bigger. And now, just because I want to make sure this looks like it's on top, I'm going to add a little bit more white to the corners so that top part pops just a little bit. I'm going to pull it to the center. Okay. I'm just going to add a couple on this side. Add a little bit more black to the sides and give it that shadow look. And the black underneath. Okay, so that's gonna be part of our sign. Now I'm gonna do the top portion, and it's pretty much the same thing except how the grain of the wood is going side to side. We want to go up and down. So this is a little bit of a harder piece to do because it is a little short. So I'm going to take my 3 colors and I'm going to go from top to bottom. Fill in that color. Okay. So now, since I have my dark line on this side, I'm going to have the dark line on this side too. And take a little bit of my black and a little bit of my brown. I'm going to add that to the side. I'll let that dry a little. I'm just going to add a tiny, tiny little black line just to separate it. And I think I'm going to have that go all the way across. Okay, that kind of outlines it a little bit more. I'm going to wipe off and I'm going to add a little bit more white so it goes all the way to the top. I'm sorry, this was tan. That tan color. I'm going to add a little bit more brown for streaks. Now, when I'm using my paintbrush, I am lightly touching it. I mean, barely touching it, like if I was going to tickle someone with a feather. And that's how you get the streaks. You're almost lightly pulling it. Okay. Now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to turn my painting around and I'm going to do the stem. So I'm going to turn my painting this way because it's a lot easier to paint going side to side. So I'm going to use my bigger paintbrush. The paintbrush I wanted. I probably could use this one. So I'm going to use my lighter color with a little bit of brown. I dipped both colors in. And I'm just going to go side to side. You see how I have the different colors? That's how you're going to blend. I always like changing or blending the colors while it's on my painting and not so much inside my palette. I might dip my paintbrush in the 3 different colors, but then I blend it once it's on my piece. And that's just a different technique that I've used, and I really seem to like it. I'm going to use a lighter brown. Just get a couple streaks in there. And it's really starting to look like a piece of wood. Now since we're getting close to the top, I can go a little bit farther up because I could technically use that dark color and fix that other piece, but I try not to. I add a little bit of black into this. Oops, that was too much. That's okay. I could wait for it to dry and then I can go back and fix it. Okay. So now I'm going to go back and I'm going to take my black and my brown. I'm just going to fix this little area that I did mess up. I might even lightly just put a little bit of that black. I'm barely touching it. And you can kind of see those black streaks, and that really makes the wood pop a little bit. Might be a little hard to see, but it really helped it. See how it made it pop a little bit? And now I'm going to let this fully dry, and then I'm going to do the same thing. But in the meantime, I'm going to start working on here. I'm going to do the sides. So now that we have your dark line over here, we're going to do the dark line over here. So do a little black and a little bit of brown. Now try to have your side of your wood the same width all the way through. The first time you put paint on here, it might not look the same. It's totally fine. Just go back and try fixing that as much as you can. It's going to look better if it's the same width. Okay. All right. So I think I'm going to just add a little bit more dark brown. in my wood. It just seems a little light for me. Now, when I go back and I start looking at the light again, like if it's in that corner, then I'm going to say, okay, well, technically, if the light was coming from here, this area would be darker because there's a shadow. So I'm going to take my darker brown and I'm just going to put some darker browns at the top here because it's going to make it look like it's more of a shadow. Add a little bit of black to give it a little bit more of that shadow look. You're going to start to see it almost looks like this is casting a shadow down on it. Add a little bit of light. It's a little too dark. It's starting to blend a little bit. I might have to wait for that to fully dry and then go back. Okay, let that fully dry. Okay, so while that fully dries, it's going to be a little hard to work on the sunflower because this is a little wet. So I might just do the center of the sunflower just to give it that dark base color. I'm actually going to get my bigger paintbrush. And draw that circle. And now I'm going to draw my other one. Right there. Okay, so I'm going to rinse off my paintbrush, and this is just going to be my first layer of yellow for my sunflowers. So we're not going to do any blending just yet. I'm going to grab my yellow and I'm going to put it in my palette, and I'm just going to go. I'm just going to go over where the petals go. And that way I'm going to know if I need to put another layer of white down or if I'm good to go with my blending. Because if you have a darker background, it's a lot harder to cover up that dark background with that yellow. I'm going to make this one a little bit bigger. I picked up some of the wet paint from before, which is totally okay. I'm just not gonna go too much farther. Yep. I apologize for my furnace. All right, so that's my one sunflower. I'm going to do the next. Okay, so now I have my base colors for my sunflowers, and I'm really liking the way it's coming out. So I think I am going to do my base color for my pumpkin. So I'm going to add a little bit of orange. And I'm going to cover my pumpkin orange. And it's crazy with all these colors to really see it come alive. Also, while I'm doing this, I will let you know that if you do 3 recordings with us, you get the 4th one for free. And if you refer a painting class to a friend and they let us know that it was because of you, we can give you your next class 50% off. So please keep that in mind when you're doing some of our classes. Right now, I believe that we have about 5 classes, but we'll be coming out with a lot more soon. I'm hoping to do one about once a week, especially with the holidays. We'll do a bunch of holiday themed paintings, and we'll go from there. more orange. Okay. So I'm just going to take a little bit of my brown. I'm just going to do the outline of the pumpkin top. Okay. So I'm actually feeling very good about how this is coming out so far. And I just need to wait a little bit for my paint to dry. In the meantime, I'm going to add a tiny bit of green. And since it's such a small part, I think I'm just going to do the blending at the same time. I'm going to do the dark green and the light green. And the same thing with my, where the light is on top. You're going to keep that all in your mind while doing this. And get these out of the way. I'm going to take my little paintbrush and now my light is coming from this way, so that means that this side is going to be a lighter green and this side is going to be darker green because of the shadow. So I'm going to take my light green and go about halfway. Not even if I have enough paint, leave it on and take the darker green. Now, that's a little lighter than I would have liked, so I'm going to add a little bit of that dark brown. I'm going to add that in. That will give that more of a realistic look. To it. Okay, so now my one stem is in the back, and now this one, I think I might just have it look like it's behind here. I'm not sure if we absolutely need it. So I might just wait until later and just see if I absolutely need it. I might put a leaf over here. I think I might add that later. So I'm just gonna wait until later and kind of see how that goes. That's a nice thing, is by each painting that you do is slightly different than the last one. That's why I always say a lot of my stuff is almost one of a kind, because even if I try to do the same thing over again, it never comes out the same way. So it looks like my yellow, it's getting close, but it's not there yet. Take a peek at this side. This side is a little bit more dry. So I think we're going to start with the blending. Now, when it comes to sunflowers, I have a class that is specifically just for painting sunflowers. So I'm going to go a little bit bigger brush. Now, I always do, for this one, I think I'm going to do orange and yellow. So let me give myself a little bit of both. Now I'm going to take the yellow and a little bit of orange, and I always try to start from the base and work my way up. And that seems very orange. I'm not sure if that's the color I want. So I might actually, I am going to change it. I'm actually going to take red, just a little bit, like 2 drops. I'm barely going to take any red, just barely. I'm going to adapt my paintbrush on here, and I'm going to start at the base and work my way up like that. And you might think, red, why are you adding red? It's because when the yellow hits, it changes this really pretty auburn color. Very lightly just put in the yellow. And because I'm doing it lightly, it's almost taking the top of the paintbrush, and I'm only using the very, very top. And see how there's a bunch of bristles there? It starts making lines. And it resembles the natural lines in the petal. Just like that. Now this one's a little bit harder to do because I am on wood. There we go. So now the next one I do is going to be on top of this. So I'm just going to go to the next one. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to add that red. And add that. And then I'm going to take my yellow and start from the top and then work my way to the bottom. And that yellow is going to start to blend. Just spinach to make it a little bit easier. And I'm going to take that bright yellow. Oops. Have to wash that later. And I'm just going to go right to the side. And I'm going to make the side right here bright yellow. Now, because I do that and I make the bright yellow on top and I have the darker color underneath, that's going to show the depth that you have. So this is going to look like it's underneath. Now this one again might be a little bit drier. I'm going to take that yellow. I'm going to put it towards the tip. I'm going to work my way down. And that should make that petal lighter. Just like that. Now I'm going to do the same thing. I think I'm going to put a little bit more red on the base and almost to the right side so that this part is going to be darker. So when I put the next one, it's going to do the same thing. So I'm going to put my red. And I'm going to add my yellow and bring it from the top to the bottom. Now with this one, I might have a little bit of a hard time because I have that dark spot. So if I do, I might have to hold off with this one and put some white, and it should cover that back up. Yeah, so I'm going to add a little bit of white. And you're going to see how that dark square almost disappears. You might have to wait for it to dry and then add the white later. So I'm going to skip that one. And I'm actually going to go over here just so this can fully dry so I can blend it properly. So I'll just add a little bit of yellow. Clean up the lines. It is a lot harder to paint on wood because the way the grain is. It's hard to get your clean lines because the wood is not the same level throughout. So that's something that I usually do at the very end, but because I was here, I'm going to do it. So I'm going to actually go back and I'm going to switch sides. And you see these areas that are darker, I'm actually going to take the white and I'm just going to paint the tips and fix these. do the same thing here. Not that I absolutely had to do it, but it might just help my pumpkin stem to stand out just a little bit more. Just like that. And I'm going to cover this up too, because that'll be harder to cover later. Okay. I'm going to cover up this edge again. Okay, now you can kind of see that that one petal, you can't see the square underneath anymore, or you shouldn't. All right, so that should just take about 30 seconds to maybe a minute to dry. I'm just going to thin out the paint on the other side, because the thinner the paint, the better it is. So now I'm just going to take that little bit of red and wet it here again. And I'm going to take the yellow. I'm going to go from the top and work my way down. Take out that little bit more red. And now right over here, because it's not that dark, I'm just going to put a little red underneath. And that way when I take that yellow, when I do the edges, it's going to pop a lot more. Okay, so when I go back on the third round, I will highlight this a little bit more, and it will pop when I do the final ones. Now I'm going to keep going with the rest of the petals and do the exact same thing. Okay, so now I need to flip this one around. I'm just going to add that light yellow, and that's going to make this sit on top of that one. Okay, I apologize. I need to just plug my phone in really quick. I'm not sure how long that was off, so I apologize. All I did was just add a I'm just going to pause for 1 second. Okay, so I apologize for that. Now I'm going to go on to the second sunflower. We're going to do the exact same thing. So I'm going to give myself a little bit more yellow and a little bit more red. And this is a darker red. And now some of these aren't done with my blending, but I'm going to go back and add it later. Now this point isn't standing out that much. I need it to be a little bit more, a little bit different. So I'm going to wait for that to fully dry. I'm going to take a little bit of white. I'm going to outline that petal, and then I'm going to put the yellow on top of it, and you're going to really see it show up more. Okay, so I think I might add just a little bit more red. And let that fully dry, and I might go back and add a little bit more. But I really like how that came out. Okay, so that's a little bit wet. I can't work on that just yet, but everything else is looking pretty good. So we can start with the center. So what I usually do is I'll take that dark brown and a little bit of that black, and I will go to the center, and I'm just gonna start dabbing. I still have a little bit of my yellow on my paintbrush, which is fine, because that yellow actually gives it that little bit of highlight in the middle. I'm going to add a little bit more black. Oh, my black fell. Hold on one second. Just going to dab on the outside, make the outside ring a little darker. I'm going to take that dark brown and just do on the inside. So that is black in the center right here, a little bit lighter, and then black on the outside. And I'm going to do the same thing over here. Add that dark brown. I'm going to let that dry because it's getting a little muddy for me. So I'm going to move on to the next thing. So while that's all drying and ready to go, I'm going to start working on the pumpkin. So I'm going to rinse off my paintbrush. Sorry about that. I just got a phone call. So now I'm going to move my paint over, and I'm going to work on the side of my pumpkin. Okay, so we're going to be working on this side, and we're going to go like this. Now for the outside, we're going to add some more yellow. We're just going to do the edge yellow, and it's going to almost look like you completely did the outside, like a yellow ring almost. To the top here. And now you want to take the orange and go right next to it. And now you want to take that orange and just blend it. So that yellow ring is now a lighter orange. It's not yellow anymore. See how I lightened it up a little bit? I'm going to take a little bit more orange and we're going to go over that yellow again. That was a little too much. Maybe just add a little bit of yellow back into that. Okay. I'm going to take a little bit of that brown. I'm just going to go to the side. I'm going to make that ring around here. And I'm going to take more orange and I'm going to blend it. So it's going to go from light orange, normal orange, and dark orange. And it looks a little ridiculous right now, but the more you blend it, the better it will look. And we will go back and fix that one petal. Orange. Okay. All right, so now the next step, and you might have to go back and add a little bit more color. So the next step, we're going to take that yellow and we're going to do that halo again, that big arch. And we're literally going to do the same thing. And this yellow is going to just help that orange pop just a little bit more. Okay. Gonna take that brown and then go along the other one. And I think my brown is a little dry because it is not blending the way it's supposed to. Much better. See, just that fresh paint sometimes does all the wonders. Okay. Pull it in a little bit fatter. Yeah, a lot more orange. Okay, so usually when I do the first two, I flip it around and I do the other side, and then I will work on the middle last. So same thing, do all the same steps. This one's a little bit trickier just because you're off a little bit with the wood, but just pretend like you were, just like if it's there. Pull this out a little bit more. So it's really starting to look like a pumpkin. I think I might make this a little bit straighter. I might have to add that white just so it covers up the edge, but I'm not positive. We'll just try this first. Let's see how that looks a little bit better. I might just have to add more brown, but this is where, you know, you start it and then you say, okay, well, I want this part a little bit lighter, I want this part a little bit darker, and you just kind of play with it. Okay. And the majority of this is literally just playing with it. Like this pumpkin right now, way too brown, but that's okay because it's a base coat and I'm going to add it later. So now I'm going to add a little bit more orange and yellow. I'm going to make the center. I should just use these two colors. I don't think I'm going to use brown, but it all depends on how it looks. Now I think I should add just a little bit of brown in the center, just to, so it kind of matches the side just a little bit. Looks a little too bright in the center for me. So let's add a little bit of that brown. We're going to keep adding more orange. Now, because I added the brown in it, it's going to make it look more real and less cartoonish. If I wanted to have that more cartoonish feel, that's when you would just probably use the orange and the yellow. little paint in my hand again. So I am much happier with the way the pumpkin came out after that. It might be a little darker than I like, but I'm kind of really liking it. So in the meantime, I'm going to start with the stem, which I'm going to take a smaller paintbrush. That's a little too small. And I'm going to add the stem. I'm going to start with my lighter brown. When I come down to where the pumpkin is, I'm going to add the stem, and I'm going to add like the little kind of corners. I'm going to have it go where the pumpkin meets, just like that. I'm going to add a section right where it meets each time. Just like that. And I'm going to add a little bit of the darker stuff, and just like the same thing with the light, I know that this side is going to be darker, so I'm going to add the darker. And I'm going to add it. I'm going to have the darker part go to the left of everything, and then right at the bottom, like right where the shadows would go, I'm going to add the dark brown. I'm going to add a little bit of tan and a little bit of that light brown right to the side. And I'm going to have it kind of go from the top corner and swoop my paintbrush so it almost looks like it's round. Just like that. And it almost makes it look like a 3D. So it's a little hard to show with the light. You see how it's darker on the one side and darker at the very bottom? I think I might just add a little bit light spot. Let me add a little bit of tan. Let's see how this looks. See how that little highlight almost makes it look more 3D? And I'm going to go all the way down. And I'm going to add, oops, it's a little silhouette. I'm going to add a little bit light there. And I'm just going to mix up some of those colors. And now it looks more 3D. Now I do have to go back and I do have to fix this one sunflower right here to make sure it's on top, because I think, even though I am kind of liking it behind it. Actually, I think I'm going to leave it behind it. I think I like that better. I'm going to take my paintbrush, my little paintbrush that I have. I'm going to put a little bit more yellow. And this is where I'm going to go back and I'm going to go just retouch the edge of each of these sunflowers, just so it looks like there's a clean line. And those extra yellow stripes should make these pop. Okay, so I think that pops enough with that one leaf, or I'm sorry, petal, where I don't have to put white underneath. And I feel like the yellow is really starting to pull this together. Starting to really make the highlights pop out. Okay. So now I am going to take my chalk and I'm going to go right to the top and I'm going to write welcome. You can write whatever you want. I just always suggest that you write it in chalk or pencil first because you probably spent a lot of time making this wood look distressed. So I always write out my words first someplace else and I count how many letters. So let's see. So welcome, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So there's 7 letters. So right in the center, it would be the fourth one. So 1, 2, 6, 7, so 1, 2, 3, 4. So my C is in the center. So I'm going to put C here. I'm going to put O, M, E. So L. And I just drew that out very lightly, and I'm just going to take my skinny paintbrush, and I'm going to take my black, I think. Yes, my black. I'm going to outline these letters. I'm just going to take a peek and make sure that my letters line up. I'm sorry, my letters, not numbers, or just thickening up some of the letters. Okay, and the very last thing is you always want to sign your name to the bottom. Okay, and that is our sunflower welcome painting. Well, I just want to thank you guys so much for joining me. This was a lot of fun to do this one. I really enjoyed this project. Oh, and a lot of these chalk marks will go away once I spray it with clear polyurethane. But again, I just want to thank you guys so much for keeping me company, and I really hope you liked our class. We do have a lot more on our website, so just take a peek, and after the third one, you do get the fourth one for free. And if you refer our painting classes to a friend, your next class will be 50% off once they let us know. Okay, well, thank you guys so much. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you helping me support my business, and I hope you have a wonderful night. Thank you. Bye-bye.